Hello, everybody, and welcome to a new episode of Truth or Trend, the Holistic Breakdown with Dr. Verzal and myself, where we're going to take the time to break down some of the questions that people bring into us and give you our clinical perspective and try to give you different ways of thinking about all of these health trends out there and figure out which one is really right for you and which one is covering up a real need in the body and which ones are actually causing harm. And today we in the last few weeks, we've had a few people, well, I have at least come to me, a parent, an athlete, a school teacher, all concerned about these energy drinks that the kids are drinking. And we thought today we would take a little time and break down some of the top energy drinks that are out there and just really look at what's in these and why is there a concern over it? And most importantly, is this something that we should find a way to help elevate people's awareness of the dangers of these, if there is danger at all? Dr. Verzal, as we were just talking about it, warming up, had some pretty gnarly stories to tell about people who have had really bad experiences on these energy drinks. The story that was brought to me this morning was about the Alani Nu energy drink, and this high school girl. She, died of heart failure, and they're linking it to the caffeine. There's a lot of different concerns about that, so we're going to break those down today. But Dr. V, tell us a little more about what you were saying with the people bringing in the energy drinks, because it's not easy to get people to stop taking them. That's what we understand.
I was going to say we probably lost half the audience already. As soon as you said energy drinks, everybody's like, "Nope, I'm out. Don't talk about my energy drinks." Right?
Well, what we can talk about is things that they can learn from it that will actually give them real sustained energy and heal them, right?
Yeah. I mean, we're all about learn from what your body's trying to tell you, right? And so if your energy's down, right, adrenals are fatigued, thyroid's fatigued, and most people have that. And so actually that kind of leads into the story that I was sharing before we went live is, twice I've had patients that have committed suicide, unfortunately, young people that had committed suicide. And I mean, both times they were really, addicted, if you will, to these energy drinks, and justified, rightfully so. I mean, this gentleman was working full time and going to school, trying to, make a better life for himself and so on, doing, the right things, but he was doing it through energy drinks and, drinking Red Bulls and that sort of thing to stay up and study and do all of that. And it just overdrives the brain. I mean, so it's loaded with the excitotoxins, the artificial colors, the caffeine, stimulates the brain. And then they try to throw in taurine and some of these things to give you a little bit of a filter, get the GABA up. But it's just this overdrive. And ultimately we end up with low norepinephrine, which is a form of depression. Then, we were just also offline talking about, the fact that caffeine is going to inhibit methylation, which is then going to compromise dopamine. So that's, in this case, a lethal combination. Really, we got low norepinephrine, and there's poor focus. Ultimately, when you're not on the energy drinks,
right,
and low dopamine, which is the real mire, the real deep depression that is hard to get out of. And that was a fatal combo for two of these, young 20-something gentlemen.
So let's back up just a little bit. There are medications out there that are specifically meant to target dopamine and norepinephrine, right? There's a whole big class of antidepressants called what are they? They are selective dopamine and norepinephrine reuptake inhibitors. They try to target both of those. But let's just help everybody understand that your body needs certain nutrients and amino acids to make dopamine in the first place, and then your body converts dopamine with a bunch of biochemistry into norepinephrine. And so if somebody's on a medication like that, the first question should be, why can't they make enough dopamine in the first place? That should be the very first question.
Right.
The second question should be, why can't they convert whatever dopamine they have into norepinephrine? Now, you're saying that portions of the energy drinks that we have were causing this to go low because how exactly? What's the mechanism there?
Well, so norepinephrine is a precursor to cortisol, right? So for overdriving, all the stimulants, yeah, and I mean, remember that a lot of ADD meds is kind of a similar mechanism that we were just talking about, correct? Right? To keep that norepinephrine high so that people can focus and so on. So how can we do that naturally, right? And norepinephrine is also very related to blood sugar instability, right? Yes. And so when blood sugar dips and cravings, a lot of that is related to that. Another thing that, I talked about in the headache advantage is that was the seventh headache, the last headache that I ultimately figured out was this norepinephrine is has a gastroprotective benefit. In other words, it keeps the stomach lining healthy. And when that ends up low, then we end up with ulcer sort of sensation compromise, which again, think chronic stress, then the stomach lining gets compromised. That's that frontal headache that would go along with it. So, from a headache pattern, if we're in that chronic stress cycle, that's going to set up a frontal headache, I got a headache.
Yeah, yeah.
That's chronic, stress causing low norepinephrine, compromised stomach lining. Ultimately, if there's thyroid issues, then we're going to have tension headaches in the back of the head. If methylation is the big problem, if we're overdriving caffeine and compromising methylation, we're not going to, girls aren't going to, well, all of us aren't going to break down estrogen as well. Again, going back to dopamine sensation, and then we're going to have the bitemporal headache. So there's 3 headache potentials that could go along with side effects, if you will, of these energy drinks. So low GABA, if they're putting the taurine in there,
Yeah, yeah.
to try to stimulate GABA so that, man, we have the filter and we can think before we speak, that
Yeah.
sort of stuff. But it's going to disrupt sleep by jockeying that yo-yo of GABA and so on. And ultimately, anyway, they do taurine because taking GABA causes GABA receptors to become less sensitive to the GABA. So, they found a few years ago that taking GABA as an amino, as a neurotransmitter itself, backfires, much like these energy drinks will ultimately.
Yeah. So you mentioned taurine a couple times. So let's tell everybody, just break it down. Taurine is an amino acid, right?
Yes.
And so
Right.
we're finding it in all of these energy drinks. And there's a lot of research out there that everybody's talking about adding taurine to everything. A lot of biohackers, a lot of people who are actually, really well respected are saying that taurine, taurine, taurine. And so, we were just kind of noodling around a little bit and we were looking for some research. And here was a subject saying that the deficiency is the driver of aging. And this is basically what they're saying, is that taurine abundance decreased during aging. And reversal of this decline through taurine supplementation increases health span and lifespan in mice and worms and health span in monkeys. So this is like an interesting thought, right? Well, but I think that they're skipping over the fact that it's an amino acid, which we should be getting from protein, and we're missing the opportunity to get all the amino acids because we're just not eating or digesting enough protein. So anytime you see this, you got to think protein intake and you got to think digestion of protein more than anything else. Because if we're talking about making dopamine in the first place, we need the precursor for that, which is not taurine, right? We need the precursors that are going to come from a conditionally essential amino acids, right? Instead, so that we can make enough dopamine in the first place. So if somebody's going to be supplementing something like that, as opposed to going straight to taurine, I think it's a little wiser to go for a more balanced full amino acid profile from a supplementation perspective, or supporting protein digestion, right?
To get all the benefits, right?
Right.
I mean, all these amino acids have different benefits and value. So, certainly don't want to be deficient in any one of them ultimately, right?
Well,
So,
and that's why I just caution people when they see all this research and they see people like, David Sinclair saying it's the best thing you could possibly do to slow down aging, or all of these very, very well received scientists out there, but they're totally missing the fact that this would be coming from protein in the first place. And that's what we need to remind people, I think, more than anything. Instead of saying, oh, I need to supplement taurine. Well, yeah, you need all of the amino acids, really. That's what we're trying to say. Right?
So Red Bull's not an anti-aging technique?
Well, I mean, apparently, according to this, it will increase the health span in monkeys, right?
Right.
And the lifespan and health span in mice and worms. It's interesting to note that they don't talk about the lifespan in monkeys with it, though. They talk about the health span.
Okay.
So it probably increases some aspects of their health because you're getting one portion of what would be many, many amino acids that our body needs, right? But once we get more and more evolved up the chain from worms and mice now to monkeys, they're not talking about lifespan anymore, just health span, which is a great thing. Health span
I was going to say,
want.
I want quality of life. I mean, health span is basically quality of life to the end, which is, great. But do it through complete protein, maintain your muscle and all the other neurotransmitters that are facilitated by these neurotransmitters and so on. Yeah, there's a lot to that picture. I was joking about, Red Bull as an anti-aging medicine. Yeah, ultimately caffeine, is going to exaggerate those lines. I mean, you think of caffeine or smoking and the way that just really accelerates the aging process. it's dehydrating in there. That's also going to make the skin age, accelerate the aging process in the skin. So we've got that. We talked about, methylation. I mentioned it seems like every podcast, but methylation activates the tumor suppressor gene. So if we're inhibiting methylation with all this caffeine, ultimately, which is how stress is potentially lethal for us, then that's opening the door for some big ugly stuff too. So I mean, we got to throw all those big, the ugly warnings in there to help people understand what the long-term consequences of these choices are. I mean, I get it if you're burned out, get through the final exam or whatever
Sure.
that project is, do what you need to do, but recover, be done with it. Don't make it a lifestyle. I mean, that's really where the lethal kind of the big problems would come from is making it a way of life.
Yeah.
It's a whole different ballgame to recognize, okay, I'm burned out. I'm just trying to finish up this project for the next hour of the day. But don't be doing it every day just to get to work, because ultimately it's going to compromise sleep. So you're going to wake up less rested, going to need more the next day. It's very good for the caffeine industry, business wise, because they're going to get more and more burned out, need more and more caffeine, and just, we call it whipping a dead horse. The adrenals are already fried. You're already having trouble getting along, and you're trying to suck every last little bit of life out of there until you can't anymore.
Right. Well, you mentioned red pill. So let's take a look at that one and knock that off our list here, right? So you're looking at here 80 milligrams of caffeine in a one can, and that's per 8.4 fluid ounces. Now, that's actually less than what a normal cup of coffee would be when it comes to caffeine, right? It's about 95 for that. But let's also look up here a little bit at the sugar. We got 26 total grams of sugar, 26 grams of added sugars, right? That's an insane amount of sugar to be able to dump in your body. So from my perspective, if you're asking me if Red Bull's an okay, I'm going to say just based on the sugar alone, that's a hard no, is what that is, right?
Right.
Even though there is taurine in there, and you said, hey, maybe the taurine is going to save your brain, that taurine is not going to undo what that 26 grams of sugar is going to be doing in there. So unless anybody has a good reason to argue against that, I'm going to say that's right.
Yeah, I mean, and then we've got the food colorings and all, the artificial stuff that is, for the most part, all of them are going to be categorized as an excitatory neurotransmitter, which is, that's part of what they're looking for is the excitation of those brain cells.
Yes, yeah.
And problems. So we can talk physiologically, the effect of overdriving the brain is going to be the supraspinatus muscle in the primary rotator cuff muscle is going to be weak, people in throwing sports or baseball or any of those, things where they're using the shoulder, you're going to end up with shoulder weakness, a very common tear, if you will. And that tear starts because of a brain imbalance, typically neurotransmitter imbalance, that's going to cause a weakness in the shoulder.
As a result of which neurotransmitter imbalance, just to repeat that.
Any neurotransmitter. So imbalance, yeah.
Okay.
Imbalance in the brain is what causes the supraspinatus muscle to be weak and compromised. So that's going to be that, hurts to kind of initiate the lifting of the arm. That supraspinatus again slows the shoulder or the arm down after you release a pitch, if you will. Any of that. And again, it's just a key rotator cuff muscle. So when that muscle doesn't work right, it's very common to get frayed and compromised.
Yeah. Well, interesting. You're talking about the different neurotransmitters in the muscle testing of them and the associated points. We do have you coming to do a whole seminar on muscle testing. And I think a lot of people get most fascinated when they find out that there are specific points for muscle testing neurotransmitters. And we're talking a lot about dopamine. So those are two of the ones that are really quick and easy for people to check. Right. So you've got high dopamine right over the lips, right in the center.
High dopamine. I would use a positive finger if we're going to really split hairs, because we're looking for high. So high dopamine, that's the only high neurotransmitter point on the head. Every other one is a low point, and then the body points are high neurotransmitters. So then I would use a negative finger, but that's underneath the chin, that's low dopamine. So that's going to be your depression, right? Deep seated, really blues depression, Parkinson's, that sort of stuff. And then high dopamine is going to be schizophrenia.
Mm.
The non-pathologic example of that is vivid dreams, nightmares, that kind of stuff. So MAO inhibitors, even like orange cheeses, can be an MAO inhibitor, monoamine oxidase inhibitor, and set up the vivid dreams. So you eat a quesadilla before you go to bed, for example, and then have those crazy vivid dreams while sleeping. So that's high dopamine. But again, ultimately, what we're looking at is a low dopamine, again, because of these excitatory energy drinks, compromise the way the brain functions. And then the low noradrenaline, norepinephrine is right in front of the ear there on the tragus area. So that's low noradrenaline. These are the two neurotransmitters that we're predominantly talking about with the energy drinks.
Right, right. And if somebody is low dopamine, some of the things that you're thinking about, you think of low estrogen actually sometimes is associated.
Dopamine is a precursor to estrogen. Yes.
Right?
Yeah. Good point.
And so some of the precursors for all of that, though, to help resolve that, first of all, you want to look at something that has tyrosine in it, right? Tyrosine is going to be the conditionally essential amino acid. There's no way you can make dopamine without it. So you are going to look at protein ingestion. You're going to look at protein metabolism. You're going to look at whether or not, you do need to give them something like an amino acid supplement, something like protein, for example, in that case. What are some other things that you're finding associated with low dopamine?
Well, I was going to say, is tyrosine, is that one of the very heat labile aminos? I don't remember exactly, but I'm pretty sure that's part of what was in Protefood, right? Because it's a heat labile amino that we need to replace that often can get damaged with overcooking.
Right. Yes. Okay.
Right. So, but back to your question, B1 is the other B vitamin that's going to be very relevant in a estrogen metabolism, dopamine metabolism concern. B1 and B12 are heavy players in that arena.
Okay. But also, what else? We need zinc, magnesium, B6, right? All of those, the likely suspects, so it could be there that are missing in the ability of your body to make dopamine in the first place. And then
those are some of the most common mineral deficiencies, right?
Yes, exactly. And then high dopamine, like you said, that gets to be excitotoxic, right? Too much going on in the brain. That's kind of what's been associated with like schizophrenia, right? And things like
exactly.
That. So that can be an issue of you just not having enough of the chemistry to help convert, right, the dopamine into that. And that's often actually a low copper situation can lead to that, to a high dopamine situation, because you need two copper ions to be able to make that conversion. So this is where I'd be looking for trace minerals, right? For example, or some type of a way to get a balanced amount of minerals into somebody.
Right. And as we're talking about all these, it almost has me feeling like, well, no wonder they put all these, the B1, the B12, right? Most of these you're finding in a lot of these different energy drinks.
Right.
So we'll say that their intent was good. They're trying to make it a little better for a person.
Sure, that is right. I mean, but it's a chemist's approach to it, as always, right? That's what we're trying to remind people, is that they're not going to get all of the chemistry in there when they're just trying to say, oh, these are the only 5 chemicals you need for all of this, and that's not true. You need to get it from whole food.
Yeah.
We picked on the sugar in Red Bull. So let's look at a non-sugar-free option, right? For example, right here, we got Rockstar Energy. That, of course, is got taurine right up there at the top, right? It's the one that it's talking about. And then we have, of course, natural and artificial flavors, caffeine.
Excitotoxins.
Exactly.
Caramel color. Excitotoxin, sucralose, excitotoxin. First 6 ingredients are excitotoxins, huh?
Right, but hey, it's also got ginseng in it, man. I mean, it's got yellow 5 down here, but it also but like you said, it does throw in these chemical versions of these vitamin Bs for the most part, and 160 milligrams of caffeine, right? And yeah. But so
all 5 of my hairs would be standing up.
Yeah, just one. Well, this is 16 ounces. Okay, so that's like 2 cups of coffee. Okay, so that's about there. But let's talk about sucralose, because that's the one that people are throwing in all over the place to make it okay that it can be sugar-free, right?
Right. Ouch. Yeah, again, the definition of excitotoxin is it excites nerve cells to the point of death. So in early college days, fresh out of school, they were considered excitotoxins because we can't regenerate them. Now we have BDNF, and there's some hope to rebuild. But I mean, ultimately, that's more toxic than sugar itself would even be. I would think, we can recover from a little bit of sugar and, get the pancreas and, replace the B vitamins and so on. But when we start killing nerve cells, that's a little bit more permanent, a lot harder to overcome,
Right, right.
compromise wise. So we kill those nerve cells, that sets up, that's another form of depression.
Yeah.
But, and then you're gonna be flirting with Alzheimer's and, dementia and challenges like that long term, by damaging those brain cells.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's important that people know, because there's so many people who've normalized sucralose, and they've like tried to debunk that it's bad, and they say, well, this study says that it doesn't cause cancer, so it's fine. But it's not just about that, right? There's a study that you and I were talking about earlier where it increases the risk of cardiovascular diseases having these artificial sweeteners in here. And this one, it's a pretty solid study, and I'll put this in the links below. But the conclusions say this findings from a large scale prospective cohort study suggest a potential direct association between higher artificial sweetener consumption, especially aspartame, and there we are, sucralose as well, and increased cardiovascular disease risk. So, yeah, there is science out there that says, no, too much is too much, right?
Right. And the earlier physical sign is weakness of the quads, because these artificial sweeteners are going to disrupt the small intestinal bacteria. So the biota of the small intestine, that causes a weakness of the quad. So then the patella, the knee's not going to track properly. And then people take anti-inflammatories that further compromise the intestinal lining, right? And sulfation, and perpetuate the problem. Then the knee doesn't regenerate properly even after creating that weakness. So I've had cycling buddies that are chewing gum to try to keep their sinuses open, or some of that sort of thing, and then it causes a weakness in the quad, so they have knee pain from chewing the gum to try to keep their sinuses open. Basically, their gut biota is a mess all over the place, but
So
that's
you're
the
saying
physical
that
weakness.
the artificial sweeteners were causing a weakness in the quad?
Quads, yes, right. So then the patella doesn't track right; they get knee pain.
Oh man, killer, right? And people don't realize that. They're like, oh, but I'm buying my goodies from the sugar-free section, all right? Or I'm eating the sugar-free this or sugar-free that, and that could be setting up for their quad weakness to be destroying their knees, and that's where you got to look at that. Dang, man, crazy stuff.
Yeah, so it's a fun demo. I think I talked about this on one of the other podcasts that, when I'm demonstrating to a lay public, sometimes one of the demos I'll do is, I need a little, anybody have a piece of gum? I'm like, oh, come up, so whoever has that gum in their purse, pull them up, show the bilateral quad weakness, and put the gum in the left hand. That's like taking it away. Then those quads will fire properly. And it's a very profound kind of aha moment for people. And then we can tie it in even with the brain, and the supraspinatus is going to be compromised by that, because the excitatory benefits because of the excitatory compromise that goes along with that.
Yeah.
So, right.
Oh man. Okay, so we've covered what? We've covered
taurine, memory,
right? Memory. Hey man, I just got off of an 11-hour flight. All right, give me a little here. Well, here's another one that people ask me a lot about is Celsius, right? They're like, hey, I like this Celsius. What do you think of the Celsius thing? Because look how clean this looks, Dr. V. Doesn't this look exciting? Green tea's in there, man. For goodness sake, everybody wants a little green tea, a little ginger, a little chromium, right? Yeah. There's no sugar in this one either. So what is in it, right? We've got citric acid, we got taurine, guarana seed, caffeine, right? So this one has 200 milligrams of caffeine again. Yeah. We've got a few other things in here that may or may not be a great idea for people to put in their body. And interestingly enough, this is the company that actually bought out the company that we first started talking about, this Alani Nu. And so this one, again, exactly 200 milligrams of caffeine in there as well. But as you pointed out, there's a bunch of other garbage in here, like sodium benzoate and a few other things that can really
stress the liver. Yeah, I mean, when you try to, I kind of respect the integrity. They try to put the B5, the D calcium pantotheniate, is a B5 vitamin that should help keep acetylcholine down. High acetylcholine is panic attacks. So we certainly don't want that. It's also, potentially energy. And so, I mean, I look at it, it's like, okay, I can see, hopefully there's some integrity, that seem to be some integrity behind all this. But again, we're whipping a dead horse. If your energy's down, figure out why your energy's down.
Right.
Caffeine is going to compromise your sleep, so then you don't sleep so well. Then you're more tired the next morning. You need more, Alani, more coffee, more whatever your stimulant is, and you just get into that rut of peril ultimately.
Yeah.
So figure out, oops, I didn't sleep good. Get your sleep figured out. Go to a sleep retreat with Dustin, you know.
Right.
Get that dialed in so that you can wake up spry and ready to conquer the world. I mean, really, we should be, when cortisol is functioning as it should and the rhythm is proper, cortisol should be at its highest to get us up and going in the morning. If it's not, there's a problem, fix the problem. Don't mask it and dig a deeper hole ultimately that you would with stinking 200 milligrams of caffeine, you know?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And then of course all the other rando sucraloses and all the the potential disastrous things that are in there, despite the taurine. So if we're going to
Ouch.
break it down for people who are using this, who are reaching for it for energy, what are going to be the top three things that a listener is going to say, okay, well, what can I do instead? Right? Well, can I just drink coffee, or what can I do? I need that energy. What we're saying is that first you should examine whether or not you're getting enough protein, really, right? Or digestive.
Right,
That's
right,
probably the
right.
hugest missed opportunity here in all of the people who are taking these things.
So protein deficiency, the way I muscle test for protein deficiencies, I use ammonia because when the body's breaking itself down for energy, there's breaking muscle down, tissue down for energy. Ammonia is a manufacturing byproduct, and
Yeah.
ammonia is neurotoxic. So I mean, I experienced this years ago. I'd work straight through on Thursdays, and it's like, okay, I'm off early on. I worked straight from 8 to 2 typically. And it's like, okay, I got the afternoon to go get stuff done and get my ride in. I'd be done. I was completely depressed and unmotivated. And I
Huh.
finally realized, now I do protein shakes halfway through. So I get my, 20, 30 grams of protein midway through the day. And then I'm still good to go at the end of the day. So all that's what I ultimately figured out was another way to talk about this was we were doing some work on my office one time, and my partner's wife was helping clean using Windex cleaning some stuff, and she almost passed out and literally had to lay on the table for half an hour because she was so protein deficient.
Oh,
Smelling the ammonia of the Windex took her out.
wow.
So so protein deficiency is going to show up as depression as well, as we
Sure.
just talked about with all the neurotransmitter deficiencies. And ammonia, like Windex, is going to make that worse. That's one way to muscle test and determine it. How did I get into that? I got off on a little rant there.
No, that's what we do, man. This whole show's about ranting. It's about protein. We want to rule out the protein deficiency. And
Protein
you said you're using
deficiency.
ammonia as a way to help people determine if they're protein deficient, really, right?
So a muscle test with ammonia to determine the protein deficiency. So yeah, get that dialed in because we need those amino acids to sleep and regenerate, right? While we're sleeping, make energy, rebuild, all that sort of stuff. So
So you're not
do
saying
it
that
the
people should
proper
just
way.
whiff ammonia and if they pass out, they need more protein. You're not saying that.
If they do, yes, they definitely need more
Yeah, if you
protein.
accidentally
Yeah.
do, sure. Yeah, don't do it.
So I would muscle test. I have little ammonia vials that I put in the right hand. They'll get weak. And then I figure out, hey, you need another 20, 30, 40, 60 grams of protein.
Yeah. Okay. Well, and I would say another thing that's missing for people with energy in general is a lot of vitamin Bs. And that's what a lot of people think, that they are missing
Mhm,
B1
mhm.
or B2 or B3. But we would be remiss if we didn't talk about vitamin B4 being a
Oh
big,
yeah.
because one of the big things that they talk about is an enlarged heart that's happening with these individuals. And usually
Hmm.
that is the result of people not having enough vitamin B4 in their diet to keep the tone of the muscle where it's supposed to be, or depleting it with sugars and all the other things, right, that they're doing.
Hmm. Hmm.
And potentially
Hmm.
caffeine there may be a link there, right, that could be depleting some of that and creating that sensation. So when I
Right.
think of people with low energy, that's why I do the B Core challenge. I have them eat something called B Core, right, which is whole foods that are highest in vitamin B4. So those are things like beef liver, wheat germ, uh, rice bran, and nutritional yeast. And then I'd say after a week, come back and let me know, right? Let me see if your energy is
Hmm.
significantly different. And
Hmm.
almost always the number one answer I get is, yeah, my energy's better, right? Because they've been missing that piece. So if you're
Right.
relying on these energy drinks, that might be the piece. It might be protein. It might be that vitamin B4 piece. That's what I want to just
Hmm.
offer people.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
What else might it be?
I was just saying, I was gonna say, take before you have a heart attack, huh?
Yeah. There you go. We nailed it.
Throw a bad dad joke in there.
Well, and this is what people don't realize is that they're not going to see vitamin B4 on a label. We've talked about that. It's not one that you're going to say, oh, there's this much B4 in there because they have not assigned that specific chemical that they're used to value how much is in there. So you can't look at the label of anything and see if there's a B4 in it. You have to know when it's coming from whole foods. And that's why
Yeah.
we find those specific foods. One of the athletes I was working with just recently had a real issue. he was starting to have too many. I was like, I don't understand how you're not doing better. And I found he was eating white rice, and the white rice is missing the bran of it. So he's been missing that piece that has been helping to balance out. And he was actually losing before because he was eating white rice, right? Too much.
Mm-hmm.
So we had to make that.
And then getting some arsenic with it probably as well.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, yeah. There is that.
Yeah. Right. Always something, huh?
Yeah.
So,
Well,
yeah.
and I
So
would say for energy, just for those who are trying to solve the energy problem, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about phosphorus being essential for energy as well.
mm-hmm,
ATP being
mm-hmm.
3 parts phosphorus. And I was thinking about the fact that all of the crops in this country, when they're commercially grown, they replace 3 things, right? Nitrogen, NPK, right? Phosphorus, and potassium, right? The NPK, that's what they replace. Because, and I think that gives us a clue of how essential those are for the production of any life at all. If they can't even grow a crop without replacing those 3, what are you not able to grow in yourself without these 3, right?
Serious.
So
right.
I would say that the importance of examining your phosphorus deficiency is even greater at that when it comes to energy. And then there's probably some adrenal situation going on, right? For people who are relying on so much caffeine to, like you said, whip that dead horse, right? Keep stimulating, trying to poke that bear.
Right. Well, look at all the Red Bull TV, right? It's all adrenaline sports.
That's right. There
right?
it is.
Which I love. I enjoy them too, you know?
Yeah. But you want to keep doing them for a long time, right? You don't want to just do them and burn out, right?
So yeah, if you do the sports, there you go. They get your norepinephrine, your adrenals functioning properly and recovering afterwards is ultimately, I mean, the body is designed to key up, get the cortisol going, get us through the stressful season. Then we shut it down, go to sleep and recover, and do it again tomorrow. But if we keep whipping that dead horse and keep beating those adrenals, trying to get life out of, adrenals that are already barely hanging on, they're going to crash and burn, and there's going to be potentially lethal compromise.
Okay, yeah, definitely. So at the end of all of this, what are we saying? Energy drinks, rarely if ever, right?
Right.
For those of you who are addicted to them, just learn from it, right? Maybe you need more protein. Maybe you need more phosphorus. Maybe you need more vitamin B4, right? There could be many things that's telling you that your body's just not getting enough of, because you're not going to get a long-term result from that for sure.
Right. Count the cost.
Exactly. And learn from it. And learn from the headaches, right? You've got, hey, by the way, everybody, I hope if you're watching, not just listening, Dr. B's got a cool new setup in there. His Headache Advantage, right, on display. This episode was brought to you by the Headache Advantage, ladies and gentlemen. Dr. V's book that will teach you how to take advantage of the pain that you're getting in your head.
That's right.
For those of you who are actually, so this is going to be aired on the Monday before Dr. Verzal is coming to Texas to do his muscle testing teaching. So very excited for that. We're going to talk about the neurotransmitter spots, and he's going to deliver his little, what we decided, it's not a TED talk, it's a Scott talk, right? Because it's your talk on how pain is your best friend. So we're looking forward to that.
I like that. Nice transition. Yep.
Well, any last thoughts for everybody, Dr. B, before we let them go and get back out there and make sure that they're finding other ways to increase their energy, support their lives without doing something that they just kind of fall back into a habit of doing every day, and then all of a sudden they're in a mystery pain situation where they can't figure it out, right?
Right. Naturally maximize the energy. I mean, that's why I'm an exercise junkie. Right. I know my brain works better. My energy is far better, even if I just did 5 or 10 minutes of push-ups and some other stuff just to kind of get me fired up for the next, few hours. That is why I'm an exercise junkie. When I first got married, my wife resented how much I exercised until she realized what I was like when I didn't.
Right.
So now she supports it, and she has the same lifestyle, so yeah. So exercise is far better, make good choices so that you can have sustained energy for the rest of your life, not just, burn yourself out and crash and burn, after the test or the project.
Yeah. Well, and thank you all for being here and listening to us and for supporting us and bringing in the questions and new products. And we're going to continue to try to bring newer and newer topics to everybody, the things that people are asking about us and breaking it down. If you have any questions or pushback on anything that we've said today, please leave a comment, right? We don't want to just throw this out there and be unchallenged in some of the things we're saying. We're welcome to have a conversation about this with anybody, because the goal here is to really determine whether or not the things that we are investing in are building us up for a long-term health, or if they're just something that's a quick fix and causing more damage than they're not. So please share this with everybody. Check out Dr. V's book if you haven't checked it out yet. That is one of the most, I think that should be in every American home where it should be replacing any Tylenol or anything else that's in the home, right? So check that out, and we will see you guys in another episode. Unless you have anything less you want to say, Dr. V?
Make good choices.
There you go. All right, everybody, take care. See you next time.